Oh man, we're entering new territory now thanks to the Polymega that I was just shipped out. I've got my first Sega Saturn side-scrolling superheroes game to talk about today. It is Iron Man and X-O Manowar in heavy metal, and I looked at this game, a version of this game for the Game Boy. And on the Sega Saturn, it's a much different game. It's a much more robust experience.
Iron Man selected.
I quite enjoyed revisiting this game, which I know back in 1996 when this game came out, it would not have impressed me in the slightest because it's got chunky graphics. It's a 2D game made with 3D art elements, and back in 1996 it was all about having 3D experiences where you could fly into the screen and, you know, pivot the camera in every direction, and that's not what this game is. This game is a side-scrolling superhero title, so you're going from level to level. There's some verticality because both Iron Man and X-O Manowar, and you could choose which character you want to play, and you can also play cooperatively, which my daughter and I did, have the ability to fly. They have the ability to shoot a big giant laser beam out of their chest. They've got projectile laser blasts as well, and they also have some melee attacks. And what you have to do in this game, as you could probably predict, is you go from level to level, and you fight all kinds of alien invaders, lots of little sort of goons that you have to fight along the way. Some of them look like soldiers that have been mutated. Some of them actually look like little spiders. Some of them have giant ears. They all explode quite well, and then you fight wave after wave of all of these different bad guys, including some automated weaponry like turrets and drones and things like that. You get past all of those goons, those little small fry, and then you get the mini bosses, and of course you get the bosses at the end of the stages, and all of those boss characters are taken from Marvel Comics, from the Iron Man lineup, but also from the Marvel Universe, as well as the Valiant Comics kind of world of X-O Manowar. And like I said last time, I don't know anything about X-O Manowar other than this game, which I've now played on the Saturn and the Game Boy, and I don't know much because I didn't really want to choose this character. I chose to play as Iron Man for the most part, and I made my daughter play X-O Manowar, and she had an okay time. And it was actually a lot more fun to play it cooperatively than it was alone, because obviously repetition sets in. They're clunky characters, they're in giant suits of armor, so they don't move with a ton of grace. They clank, 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 and also they constantly run out of the boost energy it takes for them to fly up to platforms, and that's very frustrating because you have to wait for the gas basically to refill before you can boost again and try to make it up to the stage. And that became frustrating in a bunch of levels where you've got enemies on the side of the platforms and they're blasting you as you come up, because if you get hit by one little bullet, you stop in midair and start falling, and you can catch yourself again and go up again, but of course you deplete your boost energy, and you end up falling quite a bit, and you end up swearing at the TV quite a bit. But basically what you see in this title is you start off in Stark Enterprises, and you go through New York City, and you go through enemy bases like Arnim Zola's castle, and you're in caves, and there's volcanic elements in the environment as well. You end up on a big spaceship at the end, so it's a nice fusion of the natural world, including a jungle type level with pretty decent little jungle sounds, little animals and stuff. I kept looking around and going, what the hell was that? And so you're cruising through all of these different levels. Eventually, the spaceship battle at the end, you end up fighting an evil enemy alien named General Krytos, and that was excruciating. That final battle is excruciating. He's one of those bosses where, and this is where my kid saw me just lose it, and I have to apologize to her, but I was freaking out, but I was also clenched, so I couldn't like fully release if I was playing it on my own, you know, like if no one was around me, I couldn't like vent as much as I want to. And you know how that when you have to bottle it up, it's worse because you can't let it out, especially when you have an 8-year-old beside you. But I was just like, because this is one of those bosses where you can just wail on the boss for a while, you start ticking down the health bar, and then it just sort of, you know, cruises back to the spot on the stage, and then it just gets zapped with like health energy, and the health bar goes right back up. So there were several times in this battle where I got it down to the tiny little titch. There was just a little bit I had to get him, and then he walks over and gets more health, and then I gotta fight him down, and it gets back down. And I had to put it down. I had to walk away. It was just too much, and it was an emotional experience. I'm still going through it. I'm still dealing with this. I'm probably gonna have to go to therapy because of this freaking game. Other than that, I actually had a pretty decent time revisiting this. I think part of it is the glow and the charm of being able to test this out on a brand new console like the Polymega. And it worked great, worked fine. I used the Polymega controller, and I was able to shoot all my repulsor blasts and my unibeam and fly around, do all the things that I wanted to do. There are some maneuvers like being able to rush attack and jump in with a flying kick or an uppercut punch and stuff. Not too much. Everything is kind of hemmed in. It's certainly not as exquisitely animated with 2D elements being crafted in 2020 would be. But I still thought there was enough cool stuff in there. One of the interesting elements that they have in the game is you can fire into the background quite a bit. There are lots of little activities, lots of bad guys traipsing around, or doors that you can blast open, or switches that you can fire at in the background. There are also art elements that come into the foreground, which was pretty interesting and very, effective, even though slightly cheesy even in 1996. It's just cool because I've been playing so many sprite-based 2D games and I've been loving them, but it's cool to kind of make the leap to polygon graphics and some of these 3D elements. So we see characters fly in towards the screen and you see a lot of stuff in the background, but you can fire into the background. And it reminded me a bit of Shadow Complex, even though Shadow Complex did it way better than this game, obviously. But you know what? I kind of had a good time with this game. It was definitely more enjoyable playing it 2-player cooperative. But even alone, I was curious to see where I was going to go to next. You do fight some interesting bosses in here, like Goliath or Absorbing Man or Melter or Mr. Hyde. There's a lot of transformation that happens, like these bad guys start growing and become much more powerful. It's basically you chip away at the health bar and you take them out. It's not a revolutionary thing at all. They also do have a couple of sequences in here where you're doing like a flying shooter, which is really fun. You almost wish that there was a little bit more energy paid to those shooting levels, and they could have extrapolated them out and even made them like a special separate mode in this game. It's not the best of the side-scrolling superhero titles that I've played by any stretch of the imagination. It's certainly not the best Sega Saturn game either, but it's pretty decent. And boy, do we need a lot more Iron Man games, huh? I don't really care about seeing more X-O Manowar, but I definitely want to see Iron Man in video games a lot more. I'm going to give Iron Man and X-O Manowar in heavy metal for the Sega Saturn a 7 out of 10.